Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you. See, love is the impulse of evolution, of spiritual growth and healing. Really, love is the nature of God. Ernest Holmes defines love as the self-givingness of spirit into creation. It is, if we think about God as being pure being, pure potentiality, beyond form, shape, name, perfect. But there's something in that potentiality that must give expression, that must bring forth its goodness into creation. And here we are. We are expressions of God's love. And because we share the image and the likeness, the same characteristics of the one, of the infinite, of Father, Mother, God, it's that same impulse for giving and for becoming is in us too. We have to change. Because where we are now is, sure, we've come so far, but we are not done. This work continues, that we've got to keep working on our stuff, healing our childhood. Yeah, I know. There's a lot there. Releasing those false identities and lesser truths of who we are so we can step into the greater. Emerson says we must release our angels that our archangels may come in. That's the nature of spiritual life. It's to always be in evolution and growth. I wanted to share with you a little funny. This came from my friend Lyle, who often supplies me with these. I think I've used it before back in the day. And it's about love. And I was thinking how I'm going to tie this in, because I'm doing love next month for February. But it actually works really well, because if we don't just grow for growth's sake, we don't just evolve for evolution's sake, we do it for love. But when you ask 4 to 8-year-olds what love is, you're going to get some interesting answers. From Billy, age 4, when someone loves you, the way they say your name is different. You just know that your name is safe in their mouth. From Carl, who is 5, love is when a girl puts on perfume and a boy puts on aftershave and they go out and smell each other. Amen. Bobby is 7, and he says this, love is what's in the room at Christmas if you stop opening presents and just listen. Nika, who is 6, says this, if you want to learn to love better, you should start with a friend you hate. I know. That's Jesus. Remember, love your enemies? Yeah. Okay. Noel, who is 7, love is when you tell a guy you like his shirt and then he wears it every day. Sounds like she's speaking from her 2nd grade experience. Cindy, who is 8, said this, during my piano recital, I was on stage and I was scared, and I looked at all the people watching me, and I saw my daddy waving and smiling, and he was the only one doing that. I wasn't scared anymore. Mary Ann, who's 4, love is when your puppy licks your face, even after you left him alone all day. Jessica is 8. She says, you really shouldn't say I love you unless you mean it, but if you mean it, you should say it a lot because people forget. And the final one, I think this is the favorite, is a 4-year-old child whose neighbor had lost his wife, an elderly neighbor. And upon seeing the man cry, the little boy went into the old gentleman's yard, and he climbed into his lap, and he just sat there. And when his mother asked him what he had said to help the neighbor, the little boy said, nothing. I just helped him cry. So I hope you feel the simple understanding of love that these little children have. But the reason that we feel it is because that's still alive in us, right? The purity of love and love's purpose in us is to connect us, to fulfill us. And so it truly is it's what drives our spiritual growth and our evolution. This is part 4 of our series on conscious evolution, and today I'm talking about what's next. I want to tell the future to you. Are you ready for that? Or at least maybe a little bit of what's possible. I've shared with you too that my intentions, my objectives in this series is each week I want to comfort us in the uncertain times we find ourselves in, to give some context that may comfort us. I want to challenge us into questioning our assumptions, maybe even changing some of our behaviors and the way we are so that we can be part of the evolution of spirit in humanity. And then what's the third thing I want to do? It's comfort, challenge, and I can't believe I'm forgetting. It'll come back to me. Really. I'm sure that it will. Anyway, I'll start right there. We're going to start with challenging. I want to challenge some myths. There are 3 myths that I think most of us, or some of us, tap into every once in a while about past, future, and present. Some people have a myth that there was an idyllic past, and if we could just get back to the way things used to be, we'd be fine. And some people have a different view of that past. You know, it goes back to the myth of Eden, that there was a time before any of this bad stuff happened. And some people have placed that in other times in history. And for some, it's 1950s America. And I will tell you that that was not an Eden for many, many people. For people of color, for LGBT people. It was not a time for all. So that's one way. People think about the past as being perfect. It never was. Some people think the future is going to be perfect. One day we're just going to solve every problem and we're just going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya all the time. That's a myth. Evolution is infinitely happening because God is infinite. If we are expressions of God, think about this. We have chosen to incarnate, or we got here somehow. We are in form. We have chosen to put a boundary around this expression so that I can experience life uniquely from this perspective and to grow and to heal and discover God anew. I love what Meister Eckhart said. I pray to God to relieve me of God that I may find God. I pray to God to relieve me of God that I may find God. I think that's what happens when we incarnate into human experience. But because we have these boundaries, this place where I stop and you begin, I'm not fully embodying the infinite that God is. So as long as we are incarnate, there is always room to grow and to heal and to become infinite. So the infinite evolution of humanity. So I'm going to bust that myth. There is no perfect future. I got into a little bit of a disagreement with a young minister. He's rather a new minister, but I'm mentoring him in a process. And I was sharing my message this morning. I shared these myths that I'm busting. And he said, well, I don't know that I believe that. I think that we might really come to be perfect and really if spirit is perfect, we're part of spirit. And I kind of pressed him a little bit. I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm going to get to that in point 3 about our certainty. But I said, what if we just have higher class problems further down in humans' evolution? What if we actually do solve the problem? And can you imagine a humanity where no one would even think of harming another sentient being? I think that's possible. But who knows what problems we might be dealing with then, the challenges that will continue to be growing us. So if I think about those evolved humans, maybe even post-humans, homo noesis, as Barbara Marx Hubbard coined that term for our future selves. There's always going to be something, and we couldn't even understand the solutions because we don't understand the problems. And if you don't know this dynamic, try sharing the concept of bandwidth and your Wi-Fi to your 90-year-old grandmother. You can't understand the solution because you can't understand the problem. And so which brings me to the present. And the myth that I would like to challenge you on and your beliefs around the present is that we live in the most important time ever and that humanity has never experienced anything like this, the specialness of our current set of problems. It's a myth. Now, I do believe that we have moved into some flexion points, some really important crossroads in the evolution of humanity. And it was ever thus. See, evolution has always, it's again our myth of, it was better in the past, it'll be better in the future. No, humanity has always faced itself in the mirror and has always been challenged to find the truth and the way forward that will grow and heal us all. And that's where we are today. We have some big problems. And what do those problems call for? Big solutions. And we, as spiritual beings in human form, we get to bring our big problems to our bigger God and trust that there is a divine intelligence moving within us that we will be a part of the solution. Indeed, we are a part of the solution right now. So I bust these myths for you so we can just relax, take the pressure off. Where we are is really important for now, but humanity has always been dealing with these things and will always. I used to do a lot of vocal coaching, and I always told my students if they were about to have a performance, I said, one of three things is going to happen. One, you're going to go out there and you're going to have the greatest performance of your life, which sounds great, but it's actually kind of a bummer because then it's all downhill from there. That was it. That was your greatest performance. The second is that you're going to give the worst performance of your entire singing career. That's terrible. But guess what? All uphill from there. You got that out of the way. Now you can relax and just keep moving forward. But 99.99% of the time, what's going to happen is the third thing. You're going to have a performance. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to have some great notes. You're going to learn, and you're going to get better, and you're going to keep moving forward. So that's how I want us to approach this whole idea of the future and the present and the decisions we're making now in the present that will guide us into the future is that we're just going to do our best. We're going to trust that there is a larger process. We're part of an intelligence of God that is demonstrating as the collective consciousness of humanity, and we're going to be fine. We're going to make mistakes. But something is moving us forward, and we're going to be okay. So now comes the inspiration. That was the third thing. I knew there was in there. I'm going to comfort, I'm going to challenge, and I'm going to inspire. So here's where the inspiration comes. This month we've been using the theory of spiral dynamics as a way of sort of looking at what evolution of human consciousness has been up to this point and what it might look like going forward. And I'm not going to go into all the colors of the different memes before, but we've arrived at this place, and what we're seeking to get to is tier 2 consciousness, where things really begin to change for the better at that point. And we have not fully landed there. I believe that there are some tier 2, some second tier systems and people and leaders, but we haven't fully, the center of gravity hasn't arrived there yet. But what I want to share with you, and also, it's still not too late that our own Cindy Wigglesworth has made her class on conscious evolution available to you for free. It's a self-paced study, great videos filmed right here in our sanctuary, and that also is pinned on the homepage of unityhouston.org, and you can get that free class if you want to go further into this theory. I also want to remind you of the quote I shared with you last week from Elizabeth Gilbert, her definition for magic, what wants to happen next. That's really what we're talking about. This is where we are in humanity. Now, what wants to happen next? Spiral dynamics predicts that the next phase of our evolution is what's called the yellow meme, which is the first level of tier 2 consciousness. It's sometimes called flex flow. It's about interdependence. Here are some of the qualities or the attributes of it. It's a pursuit of learning for its own sake. It's about systems of thinking. At Yellow, we view life as a kaleidoscope of natural hierarchies, systems, and forms. We value the magnificence of existence over material possessions, prioritizing flexibility, spontaneity, and functionality. Yellow is incredibly magical and practical in the same moment, valuing knowledge and competency. Could we not use more competency in our world? People just know how to do what they're doing and do it well. I think we undervalue that often. And it's about integrating complex systems. Yellow will be a time of great problem solving, quick, like putting together various disciplines and ways of thinking with the problems and coming into good solutions. Why do we need these solutions? Because the problems are getting worse in many ways. Not all, but many. I think that we have been in a similar place at different points in human history in terms of our growth and evolution, but we're facing some problems we've never faced before. The climate crisis that we're now in the midst of, which we will be dealing with for generations, which humanity and our industry is contributing to, that's new. And we're going to need new and clever and creative solutions, and that's what yellow offers. It's like taking that beige of survival, the very lowest level of human consciousness, and it's taking it to the next level where we're dealing with survival issues, but with so much power, competency, and ability. That's where we're going. I haven't even mentioned what comes after yellow, because really there's not a whole lot we can say about it because it's all theory pretty much at this point, but it gets me really excited and inspired. The next level up from yellow is called turquoise. And this is the level of human consciousness, the meme of harmony. It's sometimes called oceanic consciousness. This is the reemergence of the mystical connection. If you remember, on the first tier, what comes after beige, survival, is purple, which is magic. Well, now we're at magic, but in a whole new level. We have all of the rational thought in orange, where I've been talking about that. We have all of this competency of yellow, and we can re-explore the mystical, magical universe in where we live, but with such intelligence. Here are some qualities of turquoise. We are experiencing the world as a single dynamic organism with its own collective mind. We're acknowledging the self as both distinct and a blended part of a larger, compassionate whole. At turquoise, we view everything connected to everything else as incredibly beautiful ecological alignments. Can you begin to feel this oceanic possibility of humanity? Thinking is holistic and intuitive, with an expectation of cooperative actions. It scans the micro synergy of all life. It's safe. There is an orderliness of the way we move in the world. Harmony is restored. With decision making, it's blending natural flows, looking upstream and downstream, planning for the long range. Education. At the turquoise level, the entire world has access to all education. It blends feelings and technology, bringing the past to life, maximizing the brain. You get the sense of it. The theory of spiral dynamics, also, if you remember from the previous weeks, that the problem is the architect of the solution. The problems we now face are the very portals into the higher levels of being with ourselves and with one another. Now, I know that some of you are already going, it's theory, it's pie in the sky. It's truly not. But it's also not guaranteed. These are wonderful possibilities for our collective future, but it requires individuals to contribute and to step into it with goodwill. And that's what we're going to talk about next week. For the final week of this series, we're going to talk about what is my part in all of this? How can I be a part of the evolution of humanity? But I want you, just for a moment, to just feel with me the possible good that is coming. Imagine the worst problems that we're currently facing, and they've been solved, and new technologies, new ways of communicating, they've been revealed, and here we are in this bright, brand new, beautiful space, connected, honoring all, living in harmony. That's possible. That is possible. Not perfect. We're never going to be perfect. Another thing I feel really impelled to clue you in on this human evolution, this conscious evolution, is that it's never going to be unanimous. You're never going to get everybody's agreement on the right solutions, the way we go forward. We just need enough. We need enough people who are stepping into conscious evolution, who are doing the work together. There's a term that's used in spiral dynamics theory called center of gravity. I also want to remind you that you can't say that person is green, that person is orange. We're we're all of it. It's moving in us, but there is a center of gravity in each one of us. We tend to be centered at a certain level of conscious development. And it's true for humanity as well, for countries, for companies, for families, for churches. And what we're seeking to do is lift the center of gravity higher and higher in consciousness. And you know, David Hawkins, he always said that the conscious, directed, spiritually aligned thought is multiple times more powerful than the unconscious thought. And that's really true. As more of us align in this purposeful evolutionary consciousness and moving us forward, it's more powerful than the chaotic, violent energy around us. But I don't want you to think that I'm painting a picture that it's all just going to be perfect someday, because it's not. There's always going to be work to do. This isn't certain. None of this work is certain and is not guaranteed. And that really had me thinking about the trap of certainty. At the blue level of human consciousness, that's where we think about, we're people of the book, we all follow the laws, we're all in the same group together. There's a lot of certainty at that level of consciousness. This is what is. And it's very defended against any other information. Anybody seeing any of that anywhere in our world? I'm right, everybody else is wrong. The other side, there's a lot of that conversation at that blue level of consciousness. If we are going to grow and evolve past that black and white, right and wrong thinking, we have to let go of our own certainty of what we're seeing and what it means and what the solutions are. Doesn't mean we give up our agency and our willingness to act in the ways we feel are best. But we're just going to do the best we can do with what we have. Certainty can lead you into some interesting cul-de-sacs in life. You find yourself trapped against your own notions of truth. It often leads to crisis. Anybody ever seen a middle-aged man driving a red Corvette? I think you know what I'm talking about. And if that's you, I'm sorry. I'm sure you're not in any sort of a midlife crisis if that's who I'm talking to. But it can move us into some funny behaviors that when the way we thought life was going to be, it's just not looking that way. It didn't turn out the way I had made such careful plans, and it's not coming together the way I was so certain that it would. When Jesus had fed the multitudes there on the Sea of Galilee, he decided it was time to go to the other side of that great lake, and he put his disciples in a boat, and he said, I'm going to go on the mountain to pray. I'll meet you over there. They were going to Capernaum. And a storm came up. In one of the Gospels, this story is recorded. It's recorded in Matthew, Mark, and John, slightly different versions of it. There were about 4 to 6 kilometers off of the shore. Storm came up, and the disciples were incredibly afraid because the shipbuilding skills they had at that time maybe were not as sound, and it didn't have as many, and people died in these storms on these lakes. And someone looked out, and they saw through the wind and the rain and the waves, it looked like a figure was walking toward them, and they thought it must be a ghost, and they got a little scared because they knew where they were in the lake. And as the figure drew nearer, they said, oh, it's Jesus. He's walking upon the water. They already knew that Jesus was something special. But this? Now, I always say in these stories, I don't know if any of this happened, but I know it's true. There's great truth in this story for us, the metaphors that it's revealing and the way we approach our growth and our evolution. And only in the book of Matthew is this last part. In all 3 versions, Jesus comes, gets in the boat, and calms the sea, and they go to the other side. But in one version, in Matthew, there's about 4 more verses that are added, where Peter, you remember impetuous Peter, before Jesus has come to the boat, he says, Master, call to me, and I will walk on the water with you. He was having an evolutionary moment in his consciousness. He's like, now, up until now, I have known that water is not for walking upon. But I now see that there is a greater reality possible because, look, my teacher, he's doing it. And didn't Jesus say, greater things? Greater things shall they do who come after? So if it's possible that I want in on that, he says, Jesus, tell me, and I'm going to join you. And then in a moment of great faith and great courage, he was waiting for the word from Jesus, and Jesus said, come. Yeah, you can do this. And he stepped out of the boat, and behold, the surface of the water held him, and he did not sink. A moment, an evolutionary leap forward in what's possible for humanity. And then he saw the problems again. His eye was drawn to the waves and the wind. He took his eye off of Jesus. And the scripture says he began to sink beneath the waves. And at that moment, fear overtook him, and he reached out and he said, Master, save me. And he was saved. Jesus reached and took his hand, lifted him up of the water, and they got into the boat. And Jesus said, "O ye of little faith." I've always thought the point of this story is like, what a screw-up Peter is. You know, just can't do anything right, always doing that, not getting it right. But later, as I've had more life experience and my own failures over and over again, I've come to greatly admire this man. He got out of the boat, y'all. He had enough courage to get out of the boat. And if you also remember what Jesus said about little faith, he said, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. I don't think that this is quite the criticism that we've taken it to mean. And what did Peter do when it wasn't working anymore? When he wasn't able to sustain this new consciousness he so desired, he did what we all must do. We ask for help. Because whatever is going to be called for from our collective consciousness to survive as humanity, we're not going to do it alone. Nobody has all the answers. And we're going to try things, and some will not work. But if we can let go of our certainty and our need to be right, if we can open our heart and ask for help from divine and human resources, then we're going to be okay. We're going to move forward. Here's a quote from the poet Rilke about the future. He says, "The future enters into us in order to transform itself in us long before it happens." Right now, we are being called to by our future. We often speak about the wisdom of the ancestors behind us. And to close today, I want to do an invocation. I want to do a prayer of the energy of the ancestors behind us, but also to the descendants before us. Imagine our spiritual and even our biological descendants who have already, you see, we are bigger than space and time. Who and what we are is we're part of the infinite. So imagine with me, I invite you to close your eyes and imagine that we are able to receive the encouragement, the inspiration from our human forebears and those who come after. Here we are in the year 2021, facing the challenges we face as human beings in our culture, the division, the illness, the scarcity, the drought, the hunger, the inequitable sharing of the earth's resources, all of these problems here. And we open and we listen. So we invite the wisdom of those ancestors at Beige, the ones who learned to survive. That wisdom is in us still, and we welcome their support. We welcome the support of those who evolved into that level of the magical tribal purple, who began to see that we are greater than our individual survival. We are moving in a bigger world. And the sky and the earth and the ocean were magical to those ancestors. They learned to cooperate and move in the spirit of the earth. And we invite their wisdom. Show us, ancestors, what is ours to do to return to this harmony with earth and sky and sea. We call in the ancestors who were at the red power level, those who learned to conquer, who reached above what was formerly possible and made new ways. There was warfare, yes, we recognize, but what we are asking for from these ancestors is the power to make change for good in our world, in our lives, in our systems. There is a powerful energy of red that we now welcome. The rule of law at that blue level of consciousness, many still here on the planet, many of our ancestors who recognize we need to agree about the way we are. So we call it in now, our wisdom of following those rules, of accountability, that it's not about any person having power over any other. We are a part of something more organized and agreed upon. We welcome that energy. We welcome the energy of orange from the ancestors and those who are with us now. Isaac Newton. We welcome the beginnings of the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, all of those great minds of humanity. They are with us now, providing us answers and direction as we look within the earth itself to find and discover hidden resources. We've moved beyond the idea of following rules for rules' sake. We see, is it tested? Does it work? Is it logical? Is it rational? We welcome the rational direction from this level. We move into that green place of the global consciousness of welcoming all tribes, all people together, that is just now becoming fully present in our world, where we care for the minority, we care for the disabled, we begin to care for the earth, for those who came before and those who are with us and those who will come later. We welcome your wisdom as we attend to the task and the challenge before us. We welcome this green energy. We begin to look past what is present here now on earth into this future, more fully realized human consciousness. We move to that second tier of awareness of the yellow level of problem solving, of inter-systems thinking, of incredible creativity and practicality and competency. Descendants, please speak to us, show us, guide us, that we may better heal our planet, that we may heal our wounds of division, that we may begin to work together in more orderly ways. And we look further into the future, into the time of the turquoise harmony self, the oceanic consciousness, mystical awareness of oneness of all life. Our grandchildren and our grandchildren's grandchildren. The grandchildren of our bodies and of our thoughts and of our systems. We feel that they have solved so many of the problems that currently confound us. They have returned to a much deeper awareness of connection, of mutual responsibility, and we welcome their wisdom now. Inspire us to be better, to be more. Show us the path. And so, God, we come to you with our hearts open to become, to heal, to grow, to evolve. Guide us, lift us, heal us. All that we are as humanity is in your hands. And so it is. Amen. Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.